go to the guest hotline, Danny, and welcome onto the show a very smart football gentleman who studies and analyzes the film as well as anybody with The Athletic. Ted Nguyen is with us. And Ted, I want to start with the Dallas Cowboys. They have been blown out in consecutive weeks, 34-6, 34-10. How bad are they, and how bad is Washington's opponent Sunday? We're trying to figure out if this should be a blowout or if this is a game that might be tighter than we expect.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game should be a blowout. If it's tighter than expected, then I think the Commanders have some issues that you should start getting worried about. But this Cowboys team can't stop the run, and they try to load the box to try to stop the run, and they expose their corners. They give up big plays. Dak Prescott was kind of holding this offense together, and now that he's not there, we're seeing a lot of those issues become even worse. And, this team is just, quite frankly, might be the worst team in the league right now.
Which is just a shame from Washingtonian. Ted, I'm worried, though, about the first thing you said. If they don't blow them out, talking about from Washington's perspective, they might have some issues. I'm worried that they might. I know I'm probably getting greedy here in year one of this build, and but it's just that early season sample was so great. I'm worried that there's some regression in progress here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if we look at Kliff Kingsbury offenses historically, like when he was with the Cardinals, they've dropped off in the second half of the season. And part of that has to do with the quarterback health. Kyler Murray usually was banged up towards the end of the year, but some of that has to do with the offense's reliance on quarterback scrambles and a quarterback run game. And as we know, Jaden Daniels leads the league in scramble rate, and a big part of the run game is the quarterback option game. And we're seeing some of that take place right now with Washington. Jaden's just not very healthy, and he's not running the way he did in the beginning of the season. And some of it is the offense is a very simple offense. They use a lot of no huddle. I think as the season goes along, sometimes defenses catch up to that. They catch up to some of the simplicity. They tackle better on those bubble screens. And then, maybe some of the communication with no huddle, teams catch up those sorts of things. So I think it's too early to say that typical Kingsbury aggression is coming. We'll see if the offense is a little bit more evolved than it has been in the past. He kind of scoffed at that question early in this week. But I'm going to give him some grace and see how it differs in Kingsbury's second stint as a play caller.
Yeah, so go into that if you would, because that's actually been a topic here in D.C. this week. Kingsbury essentially disagreed with the narrative. He's like, I'm not really sure if that's true, that my offenses have slowed down in the second half of seasons. Why do you say that? What do you notice about the offense, quote unquote, being simple? And give us some details on where your concerns are there.
Yeah, I tweeted this, but I posted from weeks 1 to 8 from 2019 to 2022, the Cardinals in the weeks 1 to 8 ranked top 10 in points per drive and EPA per play. And then in the second half of the season, they dropped below 20th. So it definitely is a thing. And again, some of that has to do with Kyler Murray being out because he was hurt. But the quarterback health thing is an issue with this offense that relies a lot on quarterback running. So, I mean, and there's things in the Kingsbury offense I feel like are simple tweaks that maybe he's a little stubborn on. Like, for example, not moving your receivers. As we know, Terry McLaurin lines up on one side of the field 80% of the game, and that hurt them against the Eagles because he was facing a tough matchup, and he couldn't get open against Mitchell. And, instead of moving him around, he just kept him over there, and he just couldn't get open. And when you can't get your best playmaker the ball, that's an issue. And those are some of the issues that I feel like he should adjust to and kind of evolve this offense.
Nobody smarter than Ted Nguyen, our guest here on Grant and Danny, breaking down the film. So, Ted, I'm a rube. Kingsbury's forgotten more this morning than I know my entire life. But I noticed that. I noticed that when he was in Arizona. I noticed that here in preseason. Why does he do that? There's got to be some good reason beyond like obstinance, right? Like I'm unsophisticated, but I know if there's a guy that's good over there, I'm moving away from the guy that's good. You know what I mean? Like I coach little kids. If there's a guy that's given one of my best players a problem, I try to get him on somebody else. Like that's not crazy. Why does he do it that way?
Well, because he comes from the air raid tree, and part of the air raid philosophy is like we like to keep our receivers in the same place because we want them to to really perfect running routes from this position and only this position. And they also run a lot of no huddle. So when you're running a lot of no huddle and you're using tempo, you're running into the line of scrimmage, it's hard to move your guys around a lot. So that's part of it. But I think this is the NFL. Guys could handle more, like especially on a team where, he's by far your best receiver. It's not even close right now. You have to find ways to create matchups. I mean, the Cowboys did a brilliant job of this last year with CeeDee Lamb. He was like their only good receiver, but they found ways to get him the ball by moving him around. And that's just not what Kingsbury has done, and it doesn't seem like he's going to adjust from that. But, on this team, especially with the lack of talent at wide receiver, I think it's important to just really find ways to keep getting your best player the ball.
Ted Nguyen of The Athletic on Grant and Danny as we look ahead to the Cowboys and the Commanders. Before we go around the NFL, a couple of things. Let's zero in on Dallas. Where are they most susceptible defensively? Where do you think Washington has a chance to really take advantage of this group? And then if they were going to somehow have a dead cat bounce, rivalry game, season on the line, kind of any given Sunday performance, how would they do it?
Yeah, I think obviously up front, they're very light and they're dealing with injuries. Teams have been able to run on them all season. And Mike Zimmer has really had to adjust his defense. Like, he doesn't want to be a single high team. He doesn't want to put that eighth man in a box, but he's kind of been forced to. So he can't get into some of the pressure schemes and coverage designs he wants to. So obviously this Commanders team has been one of the best running teams all season. So they should be able to run the ball on them. And when they're loading the box and you're getting one-on-one coverage, hopefully Terry McLaurin could take advantage of that on the outside, and you could hit some of those deep balls that we saw early in the season. And sorry, the second part of the question was, how can the Cowboys make this a muddy game?
Yeah, if on Monday we have you back on and we're like, whoops, we were all wrong. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I think it would have to do with just crazy blitzes and really gambling on defense and creating negative plays. And maybe playing some tight man coverage. I mean, it's a high variance defense because, you have corners like Stephon Diggs who gambles on pick sixes. So maybe he gets a lucky one, he gets a pick six. And those types of plays are the ones that could really change the game.
Ted, my last Washington-specific one is, what have you seen from Jaden Daniels, both beginning of the season and then maybe these last few weeks, sort of post-rib situation? We still don't know what the exact injury was, by the way. Just sort of motioned to his side and said cartilage, and everyone just had to stop asking questions about it. But what have you seen kind of pre that and then post that?
Yeah, he just doesn't seem like the same runner he was early in the season. He still leads the league in scramble rate, but he just didn't do it very much against the Philadelphia Eagles. And when you take that part away from the Commanders' offense, I think it really hurts it. And obviously Jaden played out of his mind early in the season, but we still have to remember he's a rookie quarterback, and as encouraged as we are about him, training wheels help, and having that ability to run is like training wheels in your offense. And now he's kind of forced to play the game on all Madden mode, and he's struggling a little bit. And the Eagles defense is pretty tough to be fair. So maybe we see him bounce back against the Cowboys defense, which should be a little bit more simplistic because of their limitations.
One of the more intriguing matchups in the NFL this weekend is actually a Monday night game to culminate Week 12, and that's the Ravens and the Chargers. Baltimore's 7-4. LA's kind of a sneaky 7-3. You've got the Harbaugh boys going head-to-head, John versus Jim. I'm wondering how you see that game playing out, and also how authentic you think the Chargers are as a contender to win playoff games.
I think the Chargers are very legit because of their defense. I mean, Jesse Minter has done an amazing job with that defense. First of all, shoring up that run defense, and not just shoring it up. They're able to play run defense with light boxes, with two deep safeties, and that's something Brandon Staley dreamed of doing with that team, but he just never got it right, and now Minter's doing it. And that defense is hard to score on, and he's such a good play caller. And then offensively, Justin Herbert, he's just like unhinged now. Like, early on we saw the signs, we saw the flashes, but he always played the game with a little bit of caution. Like, he played like a pocket quarterback without his physical abilities, but now he's just kind of letting go, and you see him running, and you see him making these wild throws that you haven't really seen him make, and he has the talent to do it. So I think this is a legitimate team. Offensively, they don't have great playmakers on the outside, but with the way Justin Herbert's playing, the defense is playing, they have a shot to beat anyone any week. And right now, the Ravens are great in a lot of areas, but their pass defense is among one of the worst in the league. So I think this should be a fun matchup. It's one of those matchups where you can't predict what kind of game it could go, because you could see it being a defensive game. It could be a high-scoring game. But at the end of the day, we're going to see two well-coached teams with a lot of talent.
Ted, who wins the NFC West?
Oh, that's a tough one. I still have faith in the Niners. I think the Niners can still get it together. I think Christian McCaffrey hasn't looked like the same guy since coming back, but maybe with a few more games, he gets healthy. And, Ricky Pearsall might take a little bit of time to get acclimated fully in his offense. But I have faith. I think they're going to get it together eventually.
Our guest studies the film, writes in The Athletic. Ted Nguyen joining us on Grant and Danny previewing week number 12 in the NFL. All right, last one for you. The San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers, 4 o'clock window on Sunday. You were just referencing the West and how you see things playing out. I'm curious about the home team, Green Bay, 7-3 in a loaded NFC North. Jordan Love turns the ball over a lot. How much of that is him? How much of that is maybe the entire offensive situation? Well, where are you at on the Packers?
Yeah, the Packers have definitely not lived up to expectations or preseason expectations, because a lot of people are expecting this offense to be a top three type of offense, and they're still explosive. You still see those amazing plays, but they just haven't been very consistent. Jordan Love hasn't been accurate, and like you mentioned, he's been throwing those interceptions, and part of it is he's dealing with injuries. He's not as mobile as he should be, and those receivers are maddening to watch because they're so talented, but they drop the ball, they run routes in the wrong places. So it's a very inconsistent offense right now, but saying that, they're still I forgot what the record is, but I still have like 2 losses on the season, or 3 losses on the season.
7-3, yeah.
Yeah, 7-3. I mean, it's pretty amazing that they're 7-3 with all those inconsistencies. So I think they are a vulnerable team, but I think their defense has improved a lot, and not that they're an elite unit defensively, but they're good enough, and they're high variance, and they've been kind of lucky to win some of these very close games, including that Bears games that had to block a field goal at the end to win. So I think the Niners are a better team. But the Niners are also dealing with some injuries. Brock Purdy, questionable. Nick Bosa is questionable. Trent Williams is questionable. But I think if all those guys play, I would take the Niners in that game.
Ted, you were the best, man. Really appreciate the time. My plan is to continue to read your stuff, then casually drop the nuggets you share in conversation to sound smart. Thank you, buddy.